Welcome to Kidmin Backstage, the place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your Backstage Pass to see the magic or disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I'm joined by Brother Aaron Boggs.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. And here we are, just inside the snowy weather.
Yes, cool.
So, yeah. All right. Well, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about ministry momentum.
Ministry momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So, momentum is the driving force that multiplies success and makes progress easier. If we as Sunday school leaders can focus and capture momentum, obstacles appear smaller and achievements feel more attainable. But to access this powerful force, it takes effort,
Much.
as we well know. The beginning can be painstaking and labor-intensive, but once you start the snowball, it's virtually unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. And
so there is a method to achieving momentum, and there's a process to sustaining it as well. Yeah. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today, is this whole thing about momentum.
Yeah. I believe, too, it's super easy, and we just came into 2025, so everybody's got their New Year's. In fact, I think we did one right after New Year's last year.
We probably did. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't momentum, but it was, I can't remember what it was about, but it's easy, January 1st hits and everybody goes on, the gyms are full of people, and people are going on their diets and losing weight and all that, and I'm a victim of that myself, but so it's easy to get started. It's easy to all right, we're going to do this, but when day 2 hits, that's when the real test kind of starts. And it's like, I was motivated yesterday, but now I want to sleep in. Now I want to go to fast food. I want to get the unhealthy drink. And so it's easy to start, but the day 2 is always where the challenge hits.
It's like, fasting is always a good idea until, I rarely eat breakfast. I should eat breakfast, but I don't really, not very much anyway. But the day that I'm fasting, 8 o'clock, I'm starving to death.
Of course.
And I normally could go not eat till 2, and I'm just starving.
Same.
All right. So, our first point is clear vision. And so we kind of have a process. I have a lot of notes here, so we'll see how this goes. But there's kind of a process that I was thinking in my head about this whole momentum thing. And so it starts with that clear vision. Yeah. So I mention all the time, we in ministry and especially Sunday school leaders, it tends to be, and it's not necessarily unique to Sunday school leaders, but I know a lot of Sunday school leaders in this boat where we tend to wear a lot of hats. Oh yeah. And we do all kinds of stuff in church, and then we have other roles, or fathers, husbands, we have work roles, all that stuff, So we're all very busy, wear a lot of different hats. And so it's easy, I think, bringing it back to ministry, it's easy for us to get distracted. Yeah. Or, this is something I'm guilty of, is let's reevaluate our priorities here. Where, and it's good to do that sometimes. Yeah. But I think that sometimes we do it too often. Yes. We're like, it's getting hard,
So let's reevaluate.
Let's reevaluate. Wait, like going to the gym, like you were talking about, let's reevaluate this. The Bible says bodily exercise profiteth little. Maybe I need to.
True. I'm going to have to use that one.
That's So I think that at the outset, right at the beginning, if we can acknowledge or flip a switch in our brain, if we can acknowledge that when we say, okay, this is the path, this is the way that we're going, if we can acknowledge that in the very beginning, that means we're saying no to all these other things. Yeah. And that's hard.
That is so hard.
But if we know that, okay, if I say yes to this, or at least for a sustained period of time, and that's a whole other thing on goals that we could talk about. But if I say, okay, for this year, this quarter, this month, whatever it is, that I'm going to stay focused and I'm going to move in this direction, it means that I'm not going to sit and reevaluate until X date, down the road. Yes. And so it means that I'm going to stick with this, and all these other things are no.
Mm-hmm. I need to pause. I don't know if that's mic's on.
What's that?
Is my microphone on? Oh, I guess so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I just saw a flat line for a long time, and I'm like,
You were
oh no.
flatlining.
Yeah, I was flatlining. Okay, wonderful.
We need to reevaluate.
Yes, we need to reevaluate this whole deal.
But yeah, so like Philippians 3:14, you know, I wrote that in the notes, but Paul says, I press toward the mark.
Yeah.
And so that's I think, and I'm so guilty of this all the time, is like wanting to get too much on my plate.
Oh yeah.
You know, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to, you know, do this, accomplish this one thing. We're going to, you know, write this script, and it's going to be awesome, and we're going to package it up, and we're going to, you know, promote it and everything. And then it's like all these other things get in the way.
Right.
And it's not even like a conscious, like, okay, I'm going to quit doing that. It's just like you get so distracted, you know. And I think that this can apply even on a micro level. It can apply in daily tasks.
Sure.
I did this thing once. I think it was a part of a workshop, but you can find this on YouTube. This guy does it. But he talks about multitasking. And this is controversial, you know, but there's really no such thing as multitasking. There's task switching. And so he does this thing, and I might butcher this, but it's something like, and there's, like I said, on YouTube, there's a video of it, but it's something like, write these numbers, and they're like all out of sequence, 1, 5, 7, 3, 2, whatever, you know, and write these numbers and follow along with me and write them, you know, or whatever, or write them and for the next 30 seconds, write these string of numbers. And you get like all of them or most of them done. And he's like, time.
Yeah.
And then he's like, now I want you to write this string of numbers and this string of letters, you know, one number, one letter. And they're like 2 lines.
Yeah.
And you do it and you can't finish. And it's because your brain is switching, you know, you're trying to switch back and forth or whatever. It's something like that. And so, and I tried it and I couldn't do it. You know, I was like, oh, I got this.
Of course.
And so, so it is true. And I found at work, you know, that I'll try, like Cal Newport talks about time blocking or whatever. And so I'll do that. I'll do time blocking, and I'll take like an hour or something, and I'll shut off my email, and I'll focus. A lot of times I'll put music on, and I'll just focus. Yeah. And it's actually incredible how much I get done.
So much.
Because
you're intentional.
Yeah, it's like, but I mean, it's incredible. I have tried to time it before, and I've noticed, like, I just recently I was editing a video, which is kind of concentrating, intensive, you know, or however you say that. And so I was editing a video, and I was like, okay, I'm going to time how long this process takes. And I'm going through it. Well, I was getting text messages because I had sent out a text blast for something, you know. So I was getting text messages. Well, I realized it totally threw me off. Yeah. Because just that little tiny bit. Yep. Then when I came back, I was like, okay, even the split seconds, you know, it's like, where was I?
But multiplied by 10.
Yeah, exactly. And when you, on the flip side, when you are focused and you're not distracted, you not only do you not have those moments of distraction, but you also are like, you flow better, you know, like, what do they call it? Flow state. Yeah. You know, you have this flow. Yep. And so, but anyway, so that's kind of on a micro level, having that clear vision and that clear focus. But I think for a lot of what we're talking about with Sunday school leaders and our ministries and ministry momentum is kind of on that bigger level, stepping back and saying, okay, what is some goals this year, or again this quarter, whatever it might be, what's the direction? Sure. And it should be something that's a little bit out of reach. Yes. You know, I mean, it's within reach, but it's like not comfortable.
You're not going to do it the first week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to reach for it. Yeah. Because otherwise, is it even worth doing? Right. You know. So that's kind of the first step, or the first part of the process is that clear vision, that clear focus.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I guess I always say this. I need to study this out and see if I'm taking it out of context. But you know what you said about day 2. That's where it's really hard. Is Proverbs 29:11 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish."
Sure.
And then the second part, and this is what I'm not sure if I take it out of context or not, but it says, "But happy is he that keepeth the law."
Yeah.
And I think the law in that scripture is probably talking about the Bible, the law.
Sure.
But I almost think of it as like a discipline thing.
Yeah.
Happy is he that is disciplined.
Sure. I agree.
And that's how you follow that vision.
Absolutely. I agree.
So number 2 is monumental effort. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I made some cool notes on this. I got to read. So 80% of a rocket's fuel is consumed at launch. Mm-hmm. So the space shuttle is sitting there. It has to overcome gravity, the gravitational pull.
Yep.
It has to overcome the air resistance and the weight of itself.
Right.
And so, but then once it's in orbit, it basically coasts, and they say that you can even turn the engine off.
Yeah.
Once it's in orbit, because of all that propulsion or whatever you call it, from the launch.
Right.
And so, and then it just requires an occasional adjustment here and there to keep it on course. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, for the momentum, when you're trying to do a task or you have a mission, it's monumental effort.
Yes.
It's so
tough.
much.
and that's good because, like, I even have it. I put it on my phone this year as my screensaver. No, it's my background.
Oh, okay.
It just says, "Remember why you started."
Oh, that's good. I like that.
That's so simple.
That's awesome.
But remember why you started, and because, like, I was thinking about this today, when you text me the subject, because when I think back, so I'm 37, so I know. So I start thinking back of, like, and I'm really bad at this. I start thinking back over my life, and I get so negative because I see all of the wasted years.
Oh man!
Like wasted years of just.
Yeah.
Man, if I would have felt like I feel right now about, we'll just say the things of God or family values or whatever that might be.
Right.
Where would I be at this point in my life instead of, I feel like I'm just starting now.
Yeah.
18 years late or 20 years late. But, and that's, the devil likes to jump on your back. Of course, and talk in your ear. But to this point, monumental effort, when you start, like for me, when and we talk about, weight loss and all that later. But but for spiritual things, it's like once you start, especially the first chunk of time, I said day 2 a minute ago, but once you get that ball rolling, it becomes like an appetite. Like you can't get you look forward to, like we've talked about reading books. I've read a bunch already this year. It's like you look forward to, man, I can't wait to finish that book and go to the next one because I learned so much. I can't wait to get to prayer.
Yes.
I can't wait to crack open the word because I'm looking forward to it. I'm desiring it. I want it.
Right.
And of course, like we talked about at the beginning, you got to balance all that out and not, neglect your family and neglect your work.
Sure. Yeah.
You got to have balance. But once you get that momentum going, that can carry you so far.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I think what you just said about whetting the appetite, and that's so true. When we read, like when we study the Bible, when we first sit down to do it, it can be daunting.
Like, where do I start?
Yeah, and especially if it's not like, Bible stories. I mean, we're, Sunday school teachers, so we love Bible stories.
in the letters.
Yeah. So you get into the things that should need to be studied, doctrinal things, and some of these, it can be, I think sometimes it can be daunting, and it can be, dare I say, a drudgery. Like, okay, I know I need to do this.
Got to check that box.
Yeah, check that box. Yeah. But then when you whet the appetite, then it becomes something you look forward to.
Yeah.
And in the physical, in a carnal sense, the same thing with even the gym or whatever.
Yeah.
You can dread it, but you go for a week, couple weeks, and
what is seeing results.
They say 28 days is a habit.
Days,
you create that habit. Then when you don't go, you feel like, I need to get to the gym.
Yep.
People are like, what?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Well, I think it comes down to, too, whenever you love something, whenever you have a true love for whatever that is, it just makes it easy. And one thing that popped into my mind too is Pastor told me a long time ago when it comes to work ethic. He said when you first start at a job, you always want to be the best, right? You always, as Christians, we should be the best.
Yeah, and you want to give a good impression.
Yeah, but he said when you start, you are like the first one there, the last one to leave. You're taking all the extra shifts. You're working harder than anybody, and you're putting that first impression. You're showing everybody you want it. And then once you're down the road and you're where you want to be, you can ease up, not in a bad way, but you don't have to be that crazy guy that was just starting out so strong. You can kind of, at that point, you're able to coast.
Yeah, yeah, and it's exactly. It's just like this momentum, the rocket.
Yeah,
yeah. In the beginning, it takes all that effort, and the thing is it's tempting to give up in the beginning because you start out and it's like, okay, yeah, this is great, but then it's so hard. And we did a podcast. I think I did it with Brother Matthew, but we did a podcast talking about if it's hard and difficult. A lot of people are like, well, must not be God's will, but really, if anything, we should have the opposite attitude. Yeah. That if it's hard and difficult, well, this must be God's will.
That's so true.
And so I think that sometimes that's what we do, though, is we it gets hard, and we're like, okay, this is the direction. Wait, should I? Maybe God's telling me no. And we do got to be sensitive, obviously, but I think it goes back to what I said earlier about at the outset when we make a decision to go down a path, and we got to say no to these other things. I think it's important. There's a whole nother podcast I want to do about. It's called thrashing early, making your decisions, thrashing the decision before you make it to make sure it's the right one.
Sure.
But anyway, when we are making that decision to go down that path, that's the time to figure out, okay, is this God's will?
Right.
And then when you say, okay, here we go, and don't look back. The Bible talks about that, plowing, and you don't look back. So you're going ahead and you're not going to look back. And when things get difficult and things are falling apart, you're like, okay, this is probably God's will because it's difficult. And I just got to keep it together.
Absolutely. Remember why you started.
Yeah, remember why you. That's good. I like that. Okay, so number 3, maintain momentum. So once you finally get there, once you finally kind of that coast thing you talk about, once you finally get to where, okay, this isn't so bad. Okay, this is God's will. Yeah. Okay.
Finally.
So while the effort is less, there's less effort and it's not needed as much, don't completely lose that momentum.
Right.
And don't leave it on its own. So it can be tempting, especially those of us that wear all these different hats. It can be tempting to launch something, and it can be tempting to leave it then. But even if we have the discipline to stick through it, we launch it, we get it rolling, it's going, and okay, now it's rolling. And there's a balance in this. Sometimes you do want to turn it over to somebody and have them roll with it.
Yeah.
But don't just leave it. Don't assume that it's going to just go on forever and you don't ever have to touch it again.
Right.
Because otherwise, what a waste of all that momentum you created.
Right.
Like even the rocket example, it launches up, and you can. What I read, and I don't know anything about rockets. I just read it for this topic, but it says that it only occasionally needs adjustment for course.
Yeah. But
it does need that adjustment.
Right.
And so that's where we can't just leave it. And then the other part is, don't get distracted and water down your momentum. And what I mean by that is, okay, so there's kind of two sides to this. Is take advantage of your momentum, maximize it.
Yes.
Take it till the point of almost breaking.
Yeah.
Think of a rubber band. A rubber band is meant to stretch. And so the most useful a rubber band is the furthest that it's stretched without breaking.
Yeah.
And so if we can take that momentum as far as we can before it breaks and maximize it.
Yeah.
But there's a story that I read, and I might get some of the details wrong, but I read this a long time ago. I think it was in the book Onward by Howard Schultz about Starbucks. And he said that they got to a certain point where the brand Starbucks was just like invincible. It was so popular. And they started doing, I think they might still do music, I don't know, but they were selling music, they were selling merchandise, they were doing all this stuff. But what happened is they had all this, I'm going to take liberty and say momentum.
Sure.
They had all this momentum, and they started taking on too many other things, and they were losing sight of, hey, we're a coffee company.
Yes.
And so I think that's the two flip sides of this. We can let it coast, but then if we're not lazy, not blasting anybody, but if we're not lazy and we're the one that want to maximize momentum, we have to be careful that we also don't say, okay, we have momentum in that, now let's take that momentum and steer it over here.
Right.
And get distracted and where like let me think of an example. Okay, decor. We do a lot of decor stuff. We do a lot of cool scenes and everything. So let's just say that we have the momentum in that, and we want to maximize it. We want it to be awesome. And so we could take that momentum, and I'm not saying you can't use it as a springboard for something else, but we could take that momentum and say, hey, we're awesome, so let's take that over here and let's do that awesome without doing the due diligence from the ground up to launch something.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think we just have to be careful that we don't get distracted. Even, we can get distracted early on when we're trying to evaluate our priorities, but get distracted later and say, like, man, this feels good, let's do something else. Sure. And we do want to do something else, but I just think that we got to be careful that we carry it through.
Yes.
See it through. Yeah.
Well, I think too, we don't want to be results driven, but like specifically for like Sunday school, for me, what really helps my motivation, because sometimes, in anything you do, you can get weary in well doing if you're not careful.
Sure.
Then that momentum will start to ease. Especially like I go sometimes 3 weeks without being up here, just the way, the schedule falls or something. Yeah. So you're sad to admit, I'm sorry, but you don't really think about Sunday school. Right. You know what I mean? It's not really.
You're the one.
It's the whole thing's about me. But you kind of lose focus and you lose vision of that. Yeah. But what helps me with motivation is specifically, a couple things. One is whenever you see the kids like engage in the middle of whatever, and you see they're locked in and they're just, you have like their attention, whether it's a story or something dramatic. But then like altar call.
Oh man.
Like when you have altar call and you see, I've got so many pictures on my phone of kids just hands in the air, just bawling, talking in tongues, praying for each other on the floor. Just that when I walk away from that, I'm like, man, I want to be here next Sunday.
Yeah.
And so you have those moments in time that like energize you. And then I think I told you this a couple weeks ago. We have a family that's been coming, and God's just doing amazing things in their life. And they have a little girl that I'm not gonna say her name, but she thought I was really funny in Sunday school when she first started. And she's like, man, you're a weirdo. I'm like, oh yeah, well you're a weirdo too. And so that became our thing. Every time we see her at church, she's like, you're a weirdo. Hey, what's up, weirdo? And she likes, I'll do this chicken noise, right?
Oh, okay.
This little, I must have been doing it in Sunday school, some kind of bark or something. So now she wants to do, that's our relationship, right?
Yeah.
So we had a powerful move of God a couple weeks ago. And just really powerful. And they're new. She's new. She hasn't been around church. And she was sitting away from some folks that were praying, and she was crying and like scared to death. And I watched a few other people go and try to talk to her, and she would shut down. She's like, wouldn't listen, wouldn't answer any questions, and just she's gasping, like on the verge of hyperventilating. She's just so scared.
Yeah.
This is all new to her.
New,
she probably feels something and don't understand and recognize. And so like I just felt pressed to go talk to her. So I went and I grabbed her hand. I was like, what's up, weirdo? And she just kind of cracked a smile. I'm like, okay, I got her.
Yeah.
I was like, are you scared? She's like, yeah. So I was able to, in that moment, right in the middle of people praying all over the place, talk to her and just very briefly explain, hey, God's moving. This is why. And I told a funny story about, hey, when you get a new present or a new gift, you get excited, right? You jump up and down and you scream and yell. I said, that's what we're doing because Jesus is here. We're excited. And I kind of explained it. Yeah. And by the time I let go of her hand and walked away, she was just like just sitting there kind of watching, totally calm. And when I walked away, her mom said, thank you. She said, it's funny that you came up because she said about 5 minutes ago, it's like, where's weirdo? Where's weirdo?
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh man.
So moments like that, just make that momentum just kick into gear.
Oh man, that's good. That gives me an idea. I was thinking about this the other day. These used to be really popular. I don't know what happened, why they're not. It seems like they're not as popular now. But those picture albums that you can get that are digital, and they flip through.
Oh,
pictures.
like the screen?
Yeah,
yeah.
like little screen.
My mom had so many of those.
Yeah. So we should do something kind of that idea backstage.
Oh man.
Or even in practice.
That's a great idea.
On the screen of
those
altar
moments.
Services to keep that.
Yeah.
That as the energize, this is our momentum and the focus.
Yes.
Remember everything we talk about all the time. Everything points to the altar.
Absolutely.
And
that's
that would
a great
be
idea.
Man, we might have to try that.
That's a great idea.
That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I tried to put the notes on the screen
Lord.
there, but it's there. Yeah, you can't read that.
I'm blind.
I have pretty good eyesight, and I still can't read it. So we'll have to look down the paper. But so the process. Let's talk about the process a little bit before we get to our time. There's a lot of notes here, but I have 4 things down, and it's all on a talking about a rocket, trying to use that metaphor, I guess. So number 1 is the launch. So this is fun.
Yes.
We love the start, right? We all love starting stuff. That's the fun part. And I think, I used to say, and I don't think this applies as much anymore because I'm so mature.
So grown up.
But I used to say that New Year's was, or like New Year's Eve around that time was like my favorite holiday.
Yeah.
And it was because of that. It was because of fresh starts.
Yes.
It was because of the new beginning and all of that. So, but I think what happens is each of these I have a warning on there. So I got the launch and then I have warning.
Yes.
And so we get a false sense of accomplishment from starting something, don't we?
Just started.
Yeah.
We have done nothing.
Yeah, we haven't done anything. I mean, I know in meetings, Pastor and I will joke, we'll have a meeting. We usually will have a meeting about the year,
Sure.
And we get done with the whole meeting, been in there an hour or 2 hours, whatever, and all right, there we go. We accomplished the whole year.
Yeah, we don't have to do nothing else. So true.
But it is true, though, and I've thought about this, and when we talk about starting something, it's like, I think, what do they call endorphins or something that go off in our brain?
Yeah.
It makes us feel good. It's
Sure.
like we feel like this false sense of accomplishment.
Feel good about yourself.
Here we go. Yeah, I'm going to do this. And so it's really, that's the fluff. There's nothing there. It's the whipped cream on top of the hot chocolate.
We think about a marathon. You have all these people there cheering you on.
Yeah.
The gun goes off. Woo! You get a half a mile down the road and there's nobody there cheering you on.
You're a bird tweeting.
You're by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's the warning, is we get a false sense of accomplishment from starting something even though we haven't really done anything. All right, so number 2 is the liftoff.
Mm-hmm. Day 2.
Yes, day 2. And this is the, quote, real start. And this is where reality sets in, and this is where the real work begins.
Yep.
And so on this part of the process of building your momentum, you do have to start, but that's kind of the fun part, is making that decision. And again, going back to, it'll be another podcast, but about thrashing early, to coin Seth Godin's term.
Yeah.
But where you examine the decision from all angles, and then you finally, okay, this is what we're going to do. And so once you have decided that this is the path and this is the goal and this is where we're going, and now we got to start, making, have you ever, make those snowballs like for the bottom of the snowman or whatever. Yep. You start out
rolling
it's like it's tiny, it's this little thing. You start rolling it. It's all lopsided. It's not round. You got to work it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where that real work starts out. And so I have a warning on that one. And the warning is this is most often the quitting phase.
Yeah.
This is where people quit.
Yeah.
This applies in business.
Sure.
People, they get all excited. They finally get that loan or whatever.
Yeah.
They start that business, the restaurant, whatever it is. And then, like you said, everybody's cheering them on. And the gun goes off. And then all of a sudden you're by yourself. And it's hard.
Yeah.
And you get to that hard spot, and that's where it's tempting to quit.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, when the crowd's not there, it's not only easier to quit because it's you don't feel the energy of everybody else, but it's also nobody's looking.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody will care if I quit.
Yeah.
But the kids do.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And so when we, this is a Sunday school podcast. So when we're as Sunday school leaders looking for those new heights in our kids ministry, or even, dare I say, in our own, if we're making goals in our own spiritual walk, it makes a difference to those kids. They can't articulate it necessarily, but it makes a difference to those kids. And so when we get to that hard spot, that's where I talk so often about, you said something about results driven a moment ago. I talk so often, and we do, obviously we want results.
Sure.
So we do want to be driven in our goals by results. But I talk about this is what we do.
Yeah.
It's not about, did somebody get the Holy Ghost today? We want them to. But we do everything. We do our part. Let God do his part.
Right.
So.
What's funny on that, we can go all day on that, but that's another thing the pastor has always pushed into me because of my character. But he's like, your problem is you get so motivated and you get so excited about something, and then because you see others doing something, or you think of like a business or something, you see their business that has been successful, and you see the nice things, the nice car, the nice house, the seemingly the money just running out their ears, even though that might not be the case. But he's like, what you don't see are the hours upon hours upon hours of agony. And use the word agony. He's like, the agony of building something. It didn't happen overnight.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I just heard somebody saying something about that. They were talking about money, and they were talking about being an entrepreneur. And they said most people that are second, third, fourth level in big companies make more money than most entrepreneurs.
Sure.
But we hear about the titans of the industries, right? The Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, the Mark Zuckerberg. We hear about these titans of industry, and they make, they're multi-billionaires. So we look at that. But he said not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur.
No.
And he said, if you are, go for it, but just know, and that agony reminded me of it, because he said, just know that you're going to go through a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Versus you could go work for a major company and make a lot of money and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so, that's really good, because there's so much, it's like the analogies, the tip of the iceberg and all the stuff underneath, the duck that's floating across the water, and you look underneath and his feet are just going nuts, paddling.
So, true.
Okay, so we have the launch and we have the liftoff, and then number 3, supersonic turbulence. Now I had to look this up because I was like, what is it when the rocket's taking off and it's just shaking like crazy and stuff's falling off of it and all that. So it's supersonic turbulence is what it is. But this is often the most laborious and detailed phase.
Yeah.
So you have to work out the kinks of this whole process, and you're running into all the unforeseen conditions. You're just starting to get it going, and now you're running into all the problems that you didn't
think about this.
Yeah, and so and now it feels like, because now you have invested a lot of time.
Yeah.
You've invested a lot of money maybe, and now it's like it's teetering on the brink of failure.
Yeah.
And it's all these issues, all these problems, all these headaches.
Yep.
And that's the other thing that guy said about entrepreneur. You could work 8 hours a day and make that good money. Entrepreneur,
it never
40
stops.
hours. Yeah, you got to keep on going. And so, and you've seen some success, but you're not quite there yet. And so the warning here is, this is where you begin to question your direction.
Very true.
And so this is
worth it.
You begin to question your resolve. So I still think that phase 2 is the high quitting phase.
Yeah.
And I think they say 50% of small businesses fail in, I can't remember it's like in a year. I think
it's year 1.
And we are in Washington State, which at one time was the highest per capita for small business. I don't know if it still is, but it was at one time. But and so with businesses, and then even in ministry and Sunday school ministry and launching into things, And again, all of these things that we're talking about, they don't apply if you're not doing something big.
Oh, sure.
If you're not doing something that's worthwhile, then it's easy.
Doesn't matter.
But, you hit this supersonic turbulence when you're, trying to launch a rocket. And so this is where you start to question your direction. Okay, we're out of time, but number 4 is atmospheric entry.
Yeah.
And so this is the breakthrough.
This is the breakthrough.
This is when you break through the atmosphere, and now all that work has launched you, and
you can breathe.
yeah, you can actually breathe.
The machine's running.
So you're seeing the results of your sustained effort. You feel like you can accomplish anything because now you have the momentum. So I remember John Maxwell. So he talks about this, the law of momentum, in his book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Yep. Favorite chapter.
The big MO.
The big MO.
But he talks about that, and one of the things he states, I think it's in this that he talks about it, but he says something I like. He says, and he's talking about sports, like basketball, I think. He says, when you're winning, nothing hurts. Yeah. You can just go for it. But when you're losing, everything hurts.
You're sore. Oh, yeah.
And so it's kind of like when I opened, this is obstacles appear smaller, achievements seem like they're right within reach. And so this is that point where you've made that effort and everything. You feel like you can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
The criticism when you're losing and when you're faltering, when you're in phase 2, that criticism cuts to the bone.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're in this phase, criticism, you brush it off. Yeah, it's like, hey, look what I'm doing. Look what I'm accomplishing.
Exactly.
But the warning here is, and we kind of talked about it briefly, but it's tempting to coast. But this is the time to maximize that momentum. Again, that rubber band.
Yes.
Now's the time to stretch it all the way.
Because it's easier to stretch at that point.
Yeah,
you're already in the moment.
You're already there, so just take it all the way. And then if you don't coast, you can be tempted to become distracted and try to take that newfound momentum off course.
Yeah.
You got to stay focused.
Absolutely.
Keep it. So.
Amen.
All right. Well, we're over our time,
as
but
always.
as always, I think that's, I always say that's a wrap at the end. I think maybe our sign off should be like, we're over time or something.
Yeah. Click.
So I did put, I didn't have an automatic timer on the next slide. So I was trying to do some podcast advertising here, and I don't have them on my screen. So
well, I see names, but they're blurry.
Can you see it? Oh, are they on the next slide there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so what I wrote.
You have to squeeze in. I don't have my glasses on.
Let me grab it here.
Okay. All right. Do some shout outs.
Backstage right here. Okay, so first of all, for if you're just listening and you want to see this on YouTube, I try to do a search. I don't know. There's probably a better way to do this, but what I did is if you search Kidman Backstage, or if you search at Gabe-Baker.
Yeah. I think I even looked up your name and it came up. It wasn't on top though.
Yeah, it's not on top yet, but
yeah, that's right.
But anyway, so you can see the videos on YouTube, and then so here's some other podcasts, and there's probably more. And if I missed somebody that I talk to you all the time, I'm sorry.
Just text them.
But yeah, text me. You can email us at info@kidmanbackstage.com. So Apostolic Children's Ministry 2.0. That's with Philip Booker, great friend of ours. Yes. Apostolic Children's Network. This is a new podcast with Brother Chris Bradshaw in Union City from Brother Dwayne Ussel's church. Growing Up with... Oh, boy. So, sorry, Brother Ashley. I'm...
Text him.
We're in the north.
We're in the north.
We're Washingtonians, Northerners. So, Growing Up with Papa.
Papa?
Yeah, Papa, but it's pronounced a certain way. Anyway, so Brother Jason Ashley. And then Sunday School Minute with Brother Eric Stender. And then Truism with Brother James Pelletier. So those are some good podcasts to check out in addition to Kidman Backstage. So, all right, well, that's a wrap.